LeBron James has opted out of the final year of his contract with the Lakers, which was set to pay him $51.4 million this season. The expectation is that the NBA's all-time leading scorer will remain with the club on a new deal. Next season will mark LeBron's 22nd season in the NBA. His son, Bronny, was drafted by the team on Thursday. Clippers star Paul George is opting out of his $48.7 million player option, with the Clippers making him an unrestricted free agent. That's been confirmed by our CBS NBA insider Bill Ryder. George is planning to meet with teams once free agency officially begins, 6 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Elsewhere, the Golden State Warriors are preparing to lose four-time NBA champ Klay Thompson in free agency. That's according to a report from The Athletic. Thompson was drafted by the Warriors in 2011, and this will mark the end of his 13 years with the Golden State Warriors. The Athletic also reports that the Lakers, Clippers, and Mavericks are expected to be among the teams interested in the five-time All-Star. And for more, welcome to the AF1 with the Lakers, Clippers, and Mavericks all interested. Bill, what's the market for a 34-year-old Klay Thompson?
It is not the same level as the market for a similar-aged Paul George. And I had heard this morning that Klay was really frustrated with the Warriors, and that there is some belief out there, Akeem, that he might be willing to take what one source called a spike deal, basically taking less money than he might get from the Warriors, the same amount of money they might offer, because he's frustrated with not feeling valued. And that would fit in with the Lakers, by the way. Again, we just talked about this. If the Lakers can get to that $13 million-ish mid-level exception, if LeBron takes enough of a pay cut, I think that's an interesting fit. The Lakers, I'm told, would be interested in doing that. Now, there are some complications there. If you're in the first apron, you get hard cap. There's a lot of sort of ins and outs of that. The lower mid-level exception, I think they want to worry about this, would be $5 or $6 million. That's probably not enough. Orlando would be an interesting fit. And Philadelphia, again, depending on whether Klay, and the source that I talked to is accurate, that he might take a spike deal and take less money to go to a competitor to just show his frustration to the Warriors. Keep an eye on the Sixers, even if they land Paul George, depending on what Klay's willing to take, because this is a player who's not the guy that he was, but he's still a 19-point-per-game player. He has won championships. He's a great locker room guy. I think there would be a robust market, Akeem, depending on how much of a pay cut Klay Thompson is willing to take relative to what he thought the Warriors should have paid him. It
was interesting what you said there, taking a spike deal elsewhere. Because this is the first time he's entered free agency in his career in terms of testing the market. I'm curious, he's bristled with LeBron in the past. How might that work? And then double-barrel question, how might that work in terms of Steve Kerr and Steph Curry not having him as an option on the floor?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll say, let's take the first part. I love both these questions. Everybody bristles at LeBron. Let's be frank. And I know you're a big LeBron guy, and I know LeBron. I like LeBron. I think he's a good dude. Everybody bristles at LeBron until they play with him, right? And the guy is so talented that whatever your frustrations with LeBron James, when you're on his team, you have a different perspective of him. Look, I think the Warriors would love to have Klay Thompson, but there is a reality now with how the cap works and how the apron, first and second apron work. And the Warriors had a massive payroll last year that they just can't afford him at the rate that he wants to be at, Akeem. And I think part of the problem in Golden State is that Klay Thompson, like players before him, by the way, in that organization, wants to be paid for what he's done and what he thinks he means historically to that organization. And they need to pay based on what they think he can be. I think they'll be okay without him, depending on the pieces they can add. And I think they don't have a lot of choice. I think they have to develop Kuminga. Andrew Wiggins is still on that roster. Steph Curry is there, and there's a slight window, but they are incredibly hamstrung in what they can do because of the reality of how these aprons work and how the cap now works. You don't want Klay Thompson to walk out the door, but you cannot overpay him if you want to have any chance to build around Steph in the years ahead.
Free agency officially begins 6 Eastern on Sunday. NBA insider Bill Ryder with the very latest here on CBS Sports HQ. Bill, stay by the phone. We'll mention CBS Sports NBA insider Bill Ryder. Bill, no surprise, LeBron opts out of his player option with the Lakers. He's eligible for a 3-year deal, turns 40 in December. What are you hearing about L.A. and LeBron's contract negotiations?
The expected, and maybe it came a little bit of the unexpected. You're right. The expected is that he will sign a new deal, 2 or 3 years with the Lakers in the coming days. Free agency officially begins tomorrow. Maybe a little unexpected, but something I heard this morning, other reports have flushed out more thoroughly, is the belief in L.A. that LeBron may be willing to take less money than he was allotted and is allowed with the Lakers in order to make it feasible for LA to add some help. Probably would involve, it depends on some other contracts and some details that the NBA will release on June 30th, but he could take less money to, in short, allow the Lakers to pursue the mid-level exception. That could include $12 or $13 million a year in the MLE. And if you do that, Akeem, DeMar DeRozan's a person you could track. Klay Thompson's a person you could track, depending on what he wants to do, which I know we'll talk about. So the short version is LeBron's going to remain a Laker, and he may take a pay cut to try to add a little firepower and help to this Lakers team.
Isn't that what he's got to do, though, right? You're trying to win another title. You probably got a window of 2 or 3 more years left. You got to take a pay cut. You got to figure out a way to make it work to get better players.
You absolutely do. I think it's worth. You're absolutely right. I'll say this. LeBron has been at the forefront, as we know, of player power, and he has always made it clear, publicly and privately, he was never going to take less money. He was never going to take pay cuts. He believed in getting paid because he thought he had value, and he wanted to bring that value from the teams that he played for. And I think you've hit the nail on the head here. He realizes that the sands are moving through the hourglass for him. You're right. He's probably got a couple years. We're not talking massive amounts of money he's going to shave off of his deal, but his ability and willingness to do that does open up a little bit more of a window. I don't know that LA is even a competitor if you add even a Klay Thompson or a DeMar DeRozan, but it helps, and the Lakers believe they can compete. And you're right, there aren't many years left where LeBron can play at the level that he has, and if he can facilitate making this team a little bit stronger, looks like that's the preference for him over a little bit more money.
Yeah, I get he wants a legacy deal, but what's more important to your legacy at this point? More money, which he already has, or another title? Another title, it deepens his legacy, which is already one of the all-time greats and arguably the greatest, but that depends on who you ask. Elsewhere in L.A., Paul George opting out of his player option with the Clippers. Where might he end up in free agency? Because the knock on Paul George, Bill, as you know, is do you win with him? Do you need him? I guess that's my question as a fan, because everywhere he's gone, I don't see him really helping the team. He's there, but to me, I'm not saying he's just a guy, but where might he end up? What does the team believe in him?
You and I are aligned, Akeem, but that is not true for everyone that I host a podcast with or everyone that runs an NBA team. Somewhere John Gonzalez, one of my 3 co-hosts over on Beyond the Arc, fell over at his house in Palos Verdes, California, because he thinks, and a lot of people think, that you add Paul George immediately to your team if you're a contender. I have the same skepticism that you do, but Daryl Morey in Philadelphia does not. They don't in Orlando. They don't in Dallas. Hell, they don't. Well, maybe to a degree they do in Los Angeles, because this is really a case of hurt feelings. Paul George was offered the same 3-year deal that Kawhi Leonard was offered. He wanted a max. That was not what Kawhi was given. He wanted a 4-year deal. And the fact that he's opted out of this deal means he's not going to be a Clipper, Akeem. He's not going to be a Golden State Warrior. And that was a team that was interested, and there was some noise out there and some reports that maybe in a sign and trade, it would have been hard to do anyway. Golden State could have gone after him. I think this suddenly thrusts Philadelphia, if you were placing wagers, as the leading candidate to land him. They've got both the cap space, and obviously they can sell a vision of a winning basketball team with Tyrese Maxey and with Joel Embiid. Orlando's interesting. They came on strong at the end of the regular season and finished pretty well. They were a playoff team straight out, not a play-in team like we thought they were going to be. They've got cap space, and then there are some other teams that could be in the mix who are competitors and would have to make some moves. But this is a situation where Paul George got frustrated with the Clippers, and suddenly if you have cap space and you are a legitimate contender or feel like you're on the brink, you have a real chance all of a sudden to try to bring in Paul George. Whether, like you or I, you think maybe that's not going to go as well as you think, or like a lot of people out there, you take that risk because he is a very talented basketball player.
Yeah, he to me, he's got still a lot to prove, right? He's an upper echelon player. But this is, to me, this is wherever he ends up going, it's a prove-it deal. Like, not to the team, but prove it to the rest of the NBA. Like, are you a guy or are you just a guy? Who are you? Staying in California, the Warriors are reportedly prepared to lose Klay Thompson in free agency.